To the latest developments in the continuing war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky says tens of thousands of Russian troops are right now amassing for a major assault on eastern Ukraine. The Pentagon today confirming Russia is sending hundreds of military vehicles and artillery right to that region. Large groups of civilians are also fleeing the area. Meanwhile, the mayor of the besieged southern city of Mariupol says at least 10,000 civilians have been killed so far, and the death toll could exceed 20,000. And then, of course, there is the growing refugee crisis coming out of Ukraine. Right now, more than 4.5 million have fled the country, but that's only part of the story. As of last Friday, the UN says more than 7 million Ukrainians have been internally displaced. So what to do about those who have been forced from their homes but don't have and don't want to leave the nation they love? Enter former New York Governor George Pataki. Perhaps an unexpected hero in all of this, but Mr. Pataki has quite literally been on the ground floor when it comes to getting now homeless Ukrainians a roof back over their heads. Earlier today, I spoke with the governor about the innovative and potentially life-saving new program sponsored by his foundation. Governor Pataki, good to see you. It's been a long time, sir.
It's been a long time, Bill. Great seeing you and great being on with you again.
Unfortunately, the topic is scary, is kind of nauseating, is frightening to the world, and is just cruel and perhaps filled with war crimes and violence. What you're doing to try to help the people of Ukraine, though, is, as my people would say, a mitzvah. Explain exactly what you're doing, sir.
Well, Bill, what you said is right. It's horribly cruel. And what Putin has done with this barbaric invasion is something the world must never forget. But right now, there are things that need to be done. So my little organization, we've been over to Ukraine twice, into Ukraine, looking to see what the need was and trying to fill that need. And the Pataki Center, so far, we've delivered about 70 tons of food, medicine, clothing, toys for kids, other supplies. And right now, we're in the process of building homes for people who have been forced to leave their homes, leave eastern Ukraine, and flee to other parts of Ukraine. Bill, everybody knows about the 5+ million refugees who've crossed into Poland and Moldova, Romania, Hungary. But there are over 7 million refugees still in Ukraine who have no place to go. And they are the ones who are not getting any Western help. And that's why we're going into Ukraine to deliver aid directly to them.
Are these pop-up places that are giving housing? It's not like Habitat for Humanity where you're building big homes, right? They're small structures.
These are very emergency temporary homes. We put up 20 next to almost all women and children sleeping in cots on the factory floor. And what we're doing is erecting these units. They have heat, they have electric, they have the lighting. They're comfortable. And the families, particularly the kids, see these and are just, they're able to smile, which it's hard for them to do given their circumstances. So we built the first 20, we sent another 10 to the Ukrainian government, and they're sending them into Bucha, where those horrible war crimes have been committed, to put up, to show that they're coming back. They're not just going to win this war, they're going to rebuild. So we're continuing to do that. We're going to continue to do whatever we can to help the Ukrainian people.
There are reports, Governor, that a lot of people, not millions, but a lot of people are starting to come back to Ukraine because families miss each other, because they want to be there for their country, because their children miss their fathers, all sorts of reasons. And some of them are starting to come back.
We're seeing both things, people coming back from outside Ukraine into Ukraine, and within Ukraine, people leaving the West where they fled and are refugees and going back to places like Kyiv. And they're courageous, but they want to be home. And, just as an example, in the one oblast in the west of Ukraine, where we're building these houses and helping, there are 500,000 refugees, and they have nothing, no place to stay. The government's giving them food, they're giving them clothing, but we're trying to provide the housing. So there's just an enormous humanitarian need. And Bill, I see, the U.S. government passes $12 billion in aid. The EU passes billions in aid. This organization is raising another billion in aid. You go into Ukraine itself, and you don't see any of that. And maybe they're doing a great job in Poland and helping the refugees who have left. But there's this enormous void, this enormous need for the Ukrainians inside Ukraine. And that's what our organization, the Pataki Center, is trying to help. And every little bit helps, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
So the Red Cross is trying to do some things. I assume, I don't know, but you tell me, is NATO doing much? I don't think the U.S. is doing a lot in direct aid because they are trying to, the president has said he wants to keep an arm's length on this, at least for right now, and not do a war with Russia and Putin.
You know, Bill, I can understand arm's length when it comes to lethal military assistance, but there is no U.S. presence that we've seen on the humanitarian side. And that's what's hard to understand. Yeah. How is providing food or medicine or emergency shelters provocative? It's not. And you see others doing it, but we see no presence from the U.S. inside Ukraine. I'm sure that's not the case when it comes to military aid, but when it comes to humanitarian aid, the big global organizations just have not been there. So we're trying to fill that void. We can't. You know, there's an enormous need, much more than we could ever hope to satisfy. So my wish is that the U.S. government and these other major humanitarian organizations that have billions will actually start putting those resources into Ukraine to help the refugees there. But in the meantime, our little center, I'm gonna go back. I've been there twice into Ukraine. We're gonna continue to go back. And Bill, I'll tell you, one of the things that most stunned me is we don't have massive resources. We built so far 30 of these temporary homes. We brought in the 70 tons of food, but the Ukrainian government itself is just blown away with gratitude because we're there. Yep. And I keep thinking what we've done is so little, and what they're saying is, yes, but you're here and you're doing something, and we cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. So we're going to continue to try. And I just hope sooner rather than later, the need for our organization to do what we're doing is surpassed by these entities, these global units that have billions in resources that hopefully will begin to put those into Ukraine itself.
So you're working with, obviously, the George Pataki Leadership Center. You're working with a company that provides and builds these portable houses, pop-up houses, that is in Hungary, which is the native land of your family, where your parents were from. How much does this cost? What's the financial need here?
You know, Bill, it's incredible. Well, we're working with this one company that has built these pop-up homes, and they can transport them all the way into Ukraine. And we've set up a training center inside Ukraine where they're bringing these homes. And when they're not in the erected state, they're only like 2 feet high. So the Ukrainian government has sent over engineering groups to learn how to put these up throughout Ukraine, because you load them on the back of a truck, you load them on a train, and you can take a dozen of these things anywhere very conveniently. The cost is really not that much. We're paying somewhere around $15,000 or $16,000 for one of these housing units to be constructed in Ukraine. Now we're also building other things. We're putting in place units that have showers and toilets and sinks for each in each of these units, these temporary units. And the need is just enormous. So far, we've been able to do what we could. We've reached out to another couple of other modular housing companies that have units like this that they can bring to Ukraine. At this point, we don't have the resources to buy them from other places, but we're going to continue to do everything we can to help.
So I assume that some of our viewers watching this, and will watch on Eyewitness News as well, and online, both your political supporters and perhaps even your political opponents are saying, way to go, George. What can we do to help? What can people do to help you?
You know, Bill, that's the spirit of the people in America, in New York, who want to help is just enormous. And that's what got us. We were watching TV and saying, what can we do? We have to do something. Yeah. And I know there are a lot of people who watch you who feel that same way. So that's why we decided to be there on the ground. And we have no paid staff. Everyone is a volunteer. The only expense we have is getting over there and traveling and then buying things to give to the Ukrainian refugees. So any donations to the GeorgePatakiCenter.com is going to go to help the people of Ukraine. You know, we created our center after I left as governor, and largely we focused every year on honoring people around September 11th, right, who responded with such courage on that horrific day for New York. Now we're trying to do everything we can to help those who are responding so courageously in Ukraine.
Again, the website is GeorgePatakiCenter.com, if I have that right. And Governor, thank you for joining us. Good luck to you. And a lot of people are saying cheers to Governor Pataki for what you're doing in Ukraine.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me on. Always good talking to you. And I am a believer in New York and our future.